Hey, Arlina, thanks for joining us.
Well, hey, Omar. Thanks for having me.
I'm
I'm
very
super
excited.
excited. I swear, we're like soul twins here.
There's going to be a lot of talking over the other one. I can feel
Oh
it
my God.
already.
I know. It'll be fun.
It is. It's fun already. All right. So, folks, today we have Arlina Allen joining us on the SHIAR podcast today, or AA for short.
Not to be confused. I feel like the poster child.
Right?
Yeah. I was
All right.
destined.
So, yes, absolutely. So, Arlina is the host of ODAAT Chat Podcast, and she has been clean and sober since April 23rd, 1984. She was 25 years old when she hit rock bottom. And how we met is through the SHIAR Recovery Network. And when I was a guest on ODAAT Chat. Sound about right? Yeah?
That's right. Yeah. One of my highest rated podcasts, by the way.
Really?
No. Yeah, you did really good. Apparently you have a following. Apparently people like you.
Who would have thought?
All right.
I love it. I love it. I never get tired of hearing that. Sorry.
I'm tired of talking about me. How about you talk about me for a little while?
Right, exactly. I may not be much, but I'm all I think about. All right. All right. So first, before we dive into your story, tell us about your normal daily routine, including recovery.
Okay. Well, I have to confess, I'm high maintenance a little bit, as we are, because right. It's part of my whole emotion management is that I start in the morning with, I have this little English bulldog. I let him out. Aww. I have some chickens in my backyard, the fancy kind. I feed them and spend a little bit of time out. I know you're giving me this funny look on your on video.
Fancy chickens. I don't even, what does that mean, fancy chickens?
Oh my gosh. So I have 3 varieties of chickens. I saw them on Martha Stewart. I'm not kidding, like 25 years ago. I was like, oh my God, I need some chickens. and I'm half Mexican, so I think I was biologically pulled to having chickens.
Okay.
No, they're these fancy breeds. One is called a silky, and it's like, a baby chicken is just all fuzzy feathers. That's what they are like as adults. And they have these big pom-poms on their heads, and they have feathers on their feet. They're like shoes. Just super fabulous.
Do they lay eggs?
Cute. That is the first thing everybody asks me. Do they lay? Yes, they lay eggs, and we eat them, and they're delicious, super healthy. I actually have one that's called an Americana, and it's kind of its nickname is the Easter egg chicken because they lay pastel colored eggs, and my particular chicken lays green eggs. So yes, we have green eggs and ham.
I'm tempted to call this episode Green Eggs and Ham.
I know, right? Yeah. I'll show, there's pictures of my chickens on my Facebook page. I'll have to show you. They're hilarious.
I need to have some of those. Oh my God, I just pulled up silkies.
Yeah, right?
Oh,
they're cool looking. Okay, if you're online. Yeah, they're cool, right? Okay, so the other breed I have 3 breeds. One is a Polish chicken, and they have those big crazy top hats too, but they're smooth.
This is fantastic.
Like a regular. Yeah, it's wild. Who knew, right? There's like this whole subculture of backyard chicken people.
This thing is badass.
Right? They're so
I like
pretty.
the Polish chicken.
Yeah, they're
there's
pretty.
There's a black one that's got white,
a black
like this big headdress. It's like
and
white,
being the
crusted black Polish chicken.
Dude, get this. There are chicken shows. Like people are obsessively raising your face. People are obsessively raising chickens, and they take them to these shows. It's like a cat show or a dog show.
Interesting.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Many, many weird hobbies like that. But anyway, I start my day and I let my chickens out. They walk around and fertilize my lawn. I do not let this dog out. The chicken and the dogs don't mix that much. We refer to my dog lovingly as the chicken rapist. He will he will try to mount them. And hens, when the rooster runs up on them, they squat and they put their wings out. And that's how they mate. So when the dog rushes up on them, they think, oh, it's time to mate. And it's just awkward for everyone. So I just keep
Dude, it's awkward for me right now.
So I keep them separate.
Okay.
But,
all right.
I love the mornings. I like being outside. I have a beautiful garden, rose garden, lavender, all kinds of really pretty. So I like to be out there in the morning. And I will usually start my day with a gratitude list. I have a room here where I can sit on my couch and I'll burn some sage. Mm-hmm. At any given time, I probably have 3 or 4 daily readers. I'm not super religious, but I grew up religious, but I have a book called Jesus Calling that it always seems to hit home. Of course, I have the 24 hours a day one. That's a Hazelton book. And Max Lucado, it's Fear Not, which is an awesome one. Because, right, sometimes when I'm waking up in the morning and I'm kind of, I work full time at a high-tech job. I do high-tech and at the enterprise level, and it can get kind of stressful. Sometimes I wake up in the morning in fear. That's just how it is, right? It's either relationships or family or work or whatever. But anyway, it's nice to have something to help diffuse the fear. If I wake up in fear, I go, to what am I grateful for? And the words in this book often bring me the comfort that I'm seeking. And it's usually about turning my will over to God in some form or fashion. You know what I mean? Just like take a deep breath. It's like, I don't have to do this by myself. Really, when I let go of what I think that I want, been sober a long time and have practiced this so long that I quickly remember that I'm praying for the knowledge of God's will for me and the power to carry that out, and that whatever stresses that I have, I just try to give them to God. And then I try to spend a few minutes in silence with meditation. I have an app on my phone that I really like. Have you tried the Deepak Chopra and Oprah? I always call him on a Deepak Oprah, but that's not right. Chopra rhymes with Oprah. They have an awesome app. Deepak
Oprah.
Deepak Oprah.
I like it.
Deep Oprah. I don't know.
Yeah.
They have a 21-day meditation challenge starting, which is super awesome. But they have an app, and so I bought one of their series. And I usually start with that in the morning. Is like meditate for 20 minutes, but at least I try to listen to the message and then spend a few moments trying to connect to the higher power. And and then I so off to work I go. Yeah.
What's your recovery routine look like? Roughly, you still going to meetings? How does that look?
Oh, absolutely. I remember early on, this is before I met my husband. This guy was like, how long are you going to go to those classes? He goes, I think they're brainwashing you. And that's just so happens my brain needs some washing. So I'm okay with that.
Filthy. Yes.
Filthy. Yeah. So I have a weekly routine of meetings. I have several meetings I attend regularly. I do, I like early morning meetings. So I do a Sunday at 7:30. That's actually my late meeting. And then I do have a women's meeting I just started going with in the last couple months. It's like a 7:30 women's meeting on Monday. I'll go to that tonight. And then I'll hit a 6 a.m. meeting maybe a couple of times during the week if I can.
6 a.m. meetings are awesome.
You know what's interesting is that it's very early in the morning and people don't have time to put up a front or prepare a mask or I don't know what it is, but if you're showing up at an AA meeting or whatever at 6 a.m., you're serious about your recovery.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's something about 6 a.m. that cuts right through all the BS. And I happen to have a very special group at 6 a.m. It's called the ODAAT meeting. Guess how I named my podcast?
Interesting. Let me guess.
It's just that I got lucky that I found this I've been sober a long time and I've had many groups. You know, groups ebb and flow. You know, they're always evolving, just like we are, right? We're always evolving. And this particular group is just this really loving, accepting, nurturing group of people. I just really love how they just always pull together. And there's just like this kindness and compassion and a level of authenticity when people share that, I don't know, I think it's kind of rare. I feel lucky that I have this. And that's what I wish for everybody. If you haven't found your meeting, just keep looking, keep trying different meetings. I think it's important that you find your tribe. And I found mine, so I'm super grateful for that.
I love it. And we're talking to someone who anniversary day is April 23rd, 1994, which means you just celebrated 24 years?
Yeah, April was 24 years. Yeah. I've been sober almost half my life. Isn't that weird?
Quarter century coming up.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
It is huge.
It's so weird. So here's the thing. On one hand, I'm like, wow, I can't believe that's my number. I remember there was a time I couldn't make it to noon without a bong hit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I remember one time white knuckling it to noon. I was like, woohoo, I win.
What did we win, Johnny? A bong rip.
Oh my God, I love
when we win, we really lose.
We really lose, yeah. Yeah, it's funny how it's like recovery is like a paradox, right? We surrender to win in recovery.
Lots of paradoxes. Okay. So usually in the daily routine, usually in the morning routine, there's that whole idea of reaching out, turning it over, connecting with your higher power. I love what you said about waking up in fear. I know
it happens.
24 years in recovery. That's one of the things that comes up here still today.
Still human.
15 years later, still wake up in those moments where the fear comes in. What I have learned to do that's become invaluable for that is journaling in the morning. Mm-hmm. I get up, and when the fear monster takes hold of me, I start writing it down, right? Yeah. And it's usually some incoherent gibberish on the paper at first. Yeah. And for some reason, halfway through that page, that fear starts to lift.
Right.
And the change, because I pray and I meditate and I listen to Insight Timer, right? And I've got all these different things that I do. But depending on the size of the jackpot I'm in at the time.
Right.
My wife was just she would just journal every day regardless. And she says, you might want to try journaling, right? And I just remember, that's not going to work. I'm praying, I'm meditating.
Contempt prior to investigation.
Totally. I sat down one day and I journaled 4 pages.
Just like stream of consciousness writing.
Totally.
Right? Stream of consciousness. You just let it all out.
Yeah, I'm angry.
No editing.
Furious. No, it's just nothing I'm ever going to even read again. It wasn't the point was not.
That's not the purpose.
Yeah, it's not the purpose is to have something to read back to myself. It was to purge myself of this fear, right? To somehow get to the end of the pages where it's like I don't feel. It's like where to go, right? And then now I move on with my day. So anyway, I thought I'd just throw that out there because that's something that
it's so important. Yeah.
It's a recent tool I just added into my toolbox. So
now, did that come to you from, there's a book called Morning Pages by Julia Cameron. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes, it came to me via my wife
Who
doing the
read?
morning pages.
Got it.
So she was doing morning pages, and she's like, "You should just journal," because I'm not going to read the book. So she and I have a tough time taking direction. So anyway, so it was like, if you're in enough pain, try this. This has been working for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so I'll just sit down and just start. Right.
Yeah.
Don't give me any directions. Just let me start writing, and the relief comes. So
you know what's interesting is sorry to cut you off, but if I don't say it, I'm going to forget it. I have a friend who told me that you have a bullshit filter in your elbow. When you start writing, the truth comes out. Is that good?
get the fuck out.
Is that good?
That's fantastic.
Don't you love
What is
it?
that again?
You have a bullshit filter in your elbow. And when you bend your elbow and start writing,
your elbow.
the truth comes out.
Elbow, truth comes out. Wow. You know, here's the thing. I had a dear friend who's also in one of my mastermind groups. And I was telling her, I go, you know, you should start journaling. And she's like, I'm terrified. No, I'm terrified of the blank page.
Scared of it.
Yes, because I can't hide from the truth.
Oh, but why do you want to hide from the truth? It will set you free. First, it'll piss you off, but it will set you free.
Oh, I hear you. We've got all the, you know, and I just told her, I said, listen, I get it. You know, I'm staring at the blank page, and then I'm faced with the truth, and I go, but you will find that, number one, you're the only one that's reading this.
Yeah.
So the only person that you're afraid of being vulnerable with at this moment is yourself. Right. You can get past the idea that it's just me. Like, I could write it all down and then burn it. Yeah. Right? But there is that whole but then there's that whole level of, once I'm honest with myself, first there's a level of honesty that I break through, then accountability sets in. Because once I write it down, it's almost as though I'm compelled to take action. And so I'm already mind fucking myself along the way, because I'm already at the end going, now I have an assignment, right? Like, now I have to take action. So first I have to face, the truth. Right. I can't hide behind these layers of denial. Now I'm going to write it all down, and then I'm like compelled to do something. No. Maybe
No, and it's so funny because, a couple of things came up for me when you were talking about that, is that everything that you want is on the other side of fear, right? Mm-hmm. It's false evidence appearing real.
Yes.
Right? But we face everything and recover, right? Yes. So it's so important that we do that. And then the other thing that came up when you were talking about feeling compelled to take action. Well, I think that's why it's so important to have a mentor or some sort of, there's a reason why they call it a support group. It's because we face these things that we're afraid to face, but you have somebody with you who says, hey, about your assets. It's not all liability, right? We do have assets, right? We tend to, see a character defect and we're just like, oh my God, that's all I am, right? It's so important to have somebody who has unemotional, objective perspective, who can say, yes, this might be true, but that doesn't fully define who you are. And, oh, by the way, you don't have to deal with everything right now. Hey, how about we gently ease into a loving solution? Why does it got to be a bat over the head? It's like, oh my God, here's your character defect. You better fucking fix it right now. That's not the case. You don't have to. I think it's just a more loving way to just be like, okay, there it is. We'll just kind of ease on out of it. That's all right.
Well, yes. And that's where the guidance, you're so right. Mentor, sponsor, coach, right? Support groups.
Right. Yeah.
I can't tell myself. I need somebody else to guide me. I need somebody else to give me permission to take action sometimes, right? Yeah. To lift that layer of denial out of the way. But it's also just recognizing what it is that I'm doing. right?
Right.
Like the subconscious, it's a subconscious denial mainly
Yeah.
when I think about, well, why won't I write? Right? Well, it's the fear of the truth, but
Yeah.
I don't ask any more questions. So there's a
Right.
lot of unconscious negative self-talk and limiting beliefs that just put the brakes on, put the brakes on, put the brakes on. And until somebody says, look, how about this? How about we make a deal? How about you don't have to do anything?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Permission to do nothing.
Nothing. Permission to do nothing.
Right.
And then let's just do an exercise.
Right.
What would my life look like if?
Oh, that's a great one. Imagine if.
Yes.
Yeah.
What would my life look like if? How would my life be different if? Okay. And don't worry about the action taking, right? We're just going to do a little bit of fantasy work, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes that allows you, and it gives you permission, right, to release. Mainly it's going to be judgment. Because once I'm looking at what I may or may not have to do, then I'm compelled to take action. And then if I don't want to take action, then I'm going to judge myself. And it's just this whole series of negative emotions and so negative self-talk, right? And so, let's just stop this right here. Let's blank page.
I'm exhausted.
I'm exhausted already.
I'm exhausted already. Yeah.
So and so
gotta be like that. And I love that line of questioning though. One of my favorite questions is what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail?
Mm-hmm.
Don't you love that one?
That's a great question.
That just kind of leads your brain into like the realm of possibility. And that's where I like to live, because my brain, and it's so funny, I know I'm not alone in this. Our brains naturally default to the negative. We're looking for the fears. I get it. I get that it's very primal, right? It's like we're looking for, the saber-toothed tiger. Where are the problems going to be so that I can maintain safety? And I really feel like that's what a lot of the limiting beliefs are about, is to maintain safety. But you and I both know that, that safety can also be a prison. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, this whole recovery process is an amazing way to sort of sort it all out. And that writing is the best place to start.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's safety, self-preservation, right? It's that perceived self-preservation through denial, right?
Perceived, yeah.
A lot of, we don't have time for all this.
We don't have time for this.
We're already heading into another level.
My goodness.
But this is good stuff. The basics have, we've given a little bit of a foundation and some context here. Right?
Yes.
So, we've talked about the morning routine. We've talked a little bit about letting go and turning it over. But I do like to put a little bit of an emphasis on the higher power and the spiritual condition. So is there anything else that you want to expand upon as far as how you maintain your spiritual condition, that conscious contact with your higher power?
It's really through prayer and meditation. And when I work one-on-one with another woman, that's really when I feel the presence of God mostly. And listen, can I just clarify the word God? I know a lot of people have a hang-ups with that. And let's just, for argument's sake, it's kind of funny. You can just say a 3-letter word. We're all kind of on the same page. We all kind of know what we're talking about. It's like this, you can call it universal law. You can call it a higher power. A lot of people, I grew up in the church. And so I had a very indoctrinated way of thinking of God. And I had to unravel all that when I got sober. And for today, it just seems like an ever-evolving concept. And I change, and the way my God interacts with me changes. For instance, recently, at the beginning of the year, I had a friend who died suddenly from the flu. She was 2 weeks outside her 40th birthday. She and I I was hosting a New Year's Eve party. I threw an amazing pajama party every New Year's Eve, just side note. And I was sick that year, and a lot of people were sick actually. And my husband was like, "Are you sure you don't want to cancel this party?" And I was like, "You know what? When I die, they'll say she threw a lot of parties." So at the party, and my friend Katie came with her 3 kids, and she was sick too, and whatever. We just kind of pulled it together. Well, she died 5 days later.
Dude.
Yeah, 3 kids.
Wow.
I mean, and it was actually all over the news. It was on the Today Show and Good Morning America. And she's this beautiful blonde girl with 3 kids. And it was just heart-wrenching. And, Omar, I was so devastated. I mean, the day before, you know what my last text to her was? I got laid off the day before she died. And my last text to her, I kind of knew it was coming. My last text to her was, I just got the call from HR, and she said, "What does that mean?" And it says, I'm getting laid off. And that was the last thing I said to her. And she got sick and went into the hospital and passed away like 12 hours later. And, I don't question God anymore. I've been through some things that, people are like, "Is there a God?" And, how can people say that God has a plan? This is what I was getting to. People say that God has a plan. And so I don't know that God actually has a plan. What I do know for sure is that no matter what happens, God can take any situation and turn it into something magical, right? And the idea that came to me, and I don't think I thought it up on my own, I feel like it was an idea that was implanted. I get the chills now just even thinking about it. But, nature abhors imbalance. Nature is always seeking to restore balance. And I thought, you know what? Katie was such a bright light. She was such a bright light that something really fucking amazing has to happen to restore that balance. And do you know what, Omar? I decided I was going to do my part to make sure that happened. I was going to use my grief to fuel inspiration, right? So I don't think that God planned that, but I turned to God and asked for help, and that's what came to me. And I can feel the sadness in my throat as I tell you this story. I feel it, the tightness in my chest, but I still use that grief to want to do something better in this world, be the change you want to see, right? So, that's what I do. I've dedicated my life to helping other people ease their suffering. I told you earlier that I'm like an obsessive seeker, an obsessive learner. I just have an obsessive personality, so I decided to channel that into something positive. I read tons of books. I do workshops. I attend lectures. And everything I learn, I give it right back. I sponsor many women. I can't do more than 8 at a time. And that's kind of where I'm capping out right now. But that's why I have the podcast. I want to be able to share what was so freely given to me. I just see that people have these mental blocks or this pain. And I'm like, if you share your pain with me, I will help you to diffuse that. And that heals me. So it's kind of selfish, but other people benefit. We need each other, Omar, and there's no shame in that. And I feel like it's my purpose, and it's what I'm doing. It's what I'm doing with my limited time on this earth. I mean, spoiler alert, no one gets out of this alive, right? So it's like, what are you going to do with your time? There is no later. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox now.
Well, I wouldn't even.
I don't even remember what you asked me.
I wouldn't even call that a soapbox. I would say that more of the idea that very famous quote from Denzel Washington in an inaugural speech, or was it I think it was at a college campus for some sort of like a graduate.
Yeah.
Right?
I forget what those are called. It'll come to me in a minute.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's definitely
commencement.
Okay.
Does
Yeah.
that sound
So
about right? Okay.
Yeah, commencement ceremony. Let's see. Yeah, you're starting, right? We're about to launch.
Mm-hmm.
So helping others is the most selfish thing anyone can do.
Really?
Helping others is the most selfish thing anyone can do because it feels so good.
Yeah.
The benefits that you get from helping others are exponential, right?
Yeah.
And so that's something that we at times have taken for granted because we don't recognize that that's what's happening in our lives, right? You get clean and sober, and then you start giving it back,
right?
And then it's just kind of like this rite of passage that happens, and so you just keep moving forward. But teaching this to people who have no idea, that are stuck, that are unhappy, that are irritable, restless, and discontent on a regular basis, and they don't know the magic that comes with helping others, being of service. They don't understand what that means. Or if they do, how do I do it? How can I be of service to others? And we're blessed to just be able to do it. I mean, 8 sponsees. I don't know how you do it. That's crazy town.
Yeah, they're not all new, right? I can't do very many new girls at the same time, but I have a lot of girls with long-term sobriety.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, I typically have a
spot checks.
Few that are brand new. Right? Yeah.
How you doing? How's it going?
Well, you know what we do? You still alive? I'll send out little love taps every once in a while. Haven't heard from you. Love you. Where you at? Come on back to the herd. Yeah. We're like penguins. We all take turns on the outside.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right. So let's start diving into your story.
Okay.
First, briefly, please tell us how old you were the first time you drank or used drugs, and more importantly, how they made you feel.
Ooh, I feel good. You know what? I don't remember how old I was the first time, but I think I have like little sips here and there. But when I talk about the first time I talk about the time my mother, I have really nice parents. Neither one of them are alcoholics or addicts or anything like that. Dad is from Kentucky and my mama's from Mexico City. So I kind of grew up with like, the concept of a higher power. You know what it was on daddy's side? It was like, praise Jesus. And on mama's side, it was like, ay Dios mío, gracias a Dios. That's kind of how I grew up with God.
So is this where the Tex-Mex comes from?
It was a Tex-Mex. That's right. Well, not Texas, but Kentucky, whatever.
Oh, shit. Man, just completely ruined that joke. I was like,
damn it.
All right. Anyway, there's no Kentucky Mex. So go ahead.
There is. You're looking at it. But so anyway, my parents, super nice people, very decent, honest, hardworking, middle-class people. Dad was like a government guy. He was like a Marine, like an officer. And, but then he went to like work at Lockheed and that kind of thing. And my mom, she was really an entrepreneur. She was an airline stewardess when they met and worked in high tech for a lot of years. But anyway, my parents divorced when I was about 7 or 8. I'm not really sure. It's all a blur. And my mom went out on a date. And I have an older sister. I was about 10 at this time. And I have an older sister. She was 2 years older than me. Still is. Sorry, a little glitch there. But my sister was the compliant, obedient child. I was not. But mom went out and I don't know what possessed me, but there was this dusty bottle in the cabinet, and it was like a glass bottle with brown liquid. That's all I remember. And I mixed it with juice and I pounded it. And I don't know what possessed me to do that, but I tell you what, Omar, I took that first sip and I remember it burning my lips, and it burnt all the way down until it hit bottom. And then when it hit bottom, I felt this warmth spread through my whole body. And I actually didn't realize how bad I felt until I felt really good, because it was the juxtaposition between feeling really shitty and really feeling amazing. That was so, the stark contrast blew my mind. And I just remember my sister didn't drink at all. And it was like a party of one, right? Like was I was having a good old time all by myself at 10. And I know, isn't that terrible? I kind of makes me sad. I'm like, oh, and I see little kids at that age. I'm like, oh, it's like, what was going on with my little 10-year-old? I felt the need to do that. But I remember feeling numb. Like we had this tile, of course, on my floor. And I remember falling down and bumping into walls, feeling a thing. It was awesome. I loved it. And then the end of the evening didn't go so well. I remember going into the bathroom, and I don't know how graphic to be, but I remember sitting thinking I could probably spit between my legs. And instead of spitting, I threw up all over myself. Yeah. And party till you puke. And my sister cleaned me up and put me to bed and never said a word to my mother. And that began our alcoholic codependent relationship. Yeah. That went on for many years.
Alcoholism coupled with codependency. I love it.
Yeah, you gotta love it. Yeah. My favorite people are codependents, even to this day. I love me some codependency, because when I'm tired of talking about me, you can talk about me for a little while.
Man. And so it begins. All right.
Yeah, so it begins. That's how it started.
Yeah, I would say, Arlina, that you are all warmed up. So it's now time for me to turn the show over to you. It's time for you to share your story, the battle against drugs and alcohol, the wreckage it caused in your life when you hit rock bottom, and finally your journey into recovery up until today. So, Arlina, take it away. Okay.
So, that first experience was kind of set the tone for how I was going to drink, right? And I was that girl. I was definitely a binge drinker. I was definitely a party till you puke kind of girl, right? And it's just not super attractive, right? But I used to joke around. I used to say, if I didn't wake up with splash marks on my shoes, I didn't have a good time. It was super keeping it classy.
In deep.
Gotta keep it classy.
Man.
Right? Oh my gosh. And so that was, from the first drink to the last, there was many what I would call episodes. I had two alter egos, Wimpy Wendy and Badass Betsy, because I was either fighting or crying. And I never knew who was going to come out once I started drinking, right?
What was that name again?
It was either Wimpy Wendy or Badass Betsy. And you want to hear something funny? You know what I just realized recently? There was a third alter ego that would come out, which was Slutty Karen. Slutty Karen always came to the party. Right? Everybody loves Slutty Karen.
You better believe it.
My apologies to those people named Karen. I'm sure you're lovely people. I was just drunk. What can I say? So I could just never predict my behavior once I started drinking. I had that very stereotype. You're raising your hand.
Quick question.
Yeah, right?
Quick question. Yeah. I'm just curious. When did you start naming your alter egos?
Well, what's funny is I didn't come up with those until after I got sober.
Okay,
because
so this was okay.
Like while I was going through it, I was just my damn self,
Okay. All right. So there was not, because this is like huge awareness, right? Like that's pretty, and not only that, it's dissociation, right? So it's like, wow, I've created these, alter ego. It's not me, right? It's Wimpy Wendy. And that's actually a plus when you're able to dissociate yourself from the, you as a person from the behavior. So that's why I was wondering. I'm like, did she do this already? I mean, this girl's a badass. Okay, so this was later. I got it.
Yes,
Self-aware.
this was later.
My bad. Keep going.
Yeah. So, and it was just one of those things where, you know what I thought the solution was, Omar? I thought the solution was to fall in love. I bought the fairy tale lock, stock, and barrel. I thought Prince Charming was going to save me. Right. And I didn't, years later, I realized that was the beginning of like a love addiction. I had this and it's love addiction. People don't talk about it a whole lot. I don't actually talk about it, but really, love addiction is just as intoxicating and just as destructive as any other addiction. It took me out of the present moment. I lived in fantasy land. I was not seeing myself or the other person objectively at all. I wasn't seeing them. I had this idea in my mind and I just kept trying to fit it on different people. It's like, are you Prince Charming? Are you Prince Charming? And listen, I kissed a lot of frogs, never found fucking Prince Charming. Not till I got sober. But it was just kind of trippy. I thought that my salvation was going to be in a man. I thought if I found the right man, then I would be okay. And I was looking for love in all the wrong places. And I went to great lengths to be attractive. I spent a lot of time and energy and money decorating the outside. But I didn't really invest anything on that. I just felt like a shell. And, through a series of events, I grew up kind of, I went not poor. We lived in a house, so I didn't realize that we were kind of poor. My dad was a great guy. I always paid his child support, and mom worked really hard. She was working like 3 jobs at some time. So I don't mean to disparage my parents in any way, but we struggled for money. So I had this workaholism as well. Another layer of crazy.
Lots of isms.
Lots of isms. I always, and money. I thought money and a man was going to save me. So I was always working really hard. And at the end of my drinking, I had no girlfriends left except for this one, like party buddy. I mean, I couldn't show up at the bars by myself because how desperate is that? But it's like me and this one girl who was super funny, and she smoked weed and drank like I did. Weed is like that was like, if I was awake, I was high. My altered reality, Omar, was not being high. It was really weird to be not high. I was smoking so much that I would hit the bong on the way to the bathroom in the middle of the night. I was smoking so much weed that I used to have to hit my inhaler halfway through a bong hit because my lungs would seize up with like an asthma attack halfway through a bong hit. Yeah.
Well, you had asthma.
Yeah. I like developed asthma because I was smoking so much weed.
Dude.
Yeah. It was all bad. Just the insanity and the amount of money I was spending.
Yep.
Oh my God. Back in the day when, I don't know what it goes for these days, but we were spending $60 for an eighth, like every, at least once a week, twice a week, maybe. I was smoking a lot of weed, but yeah, so just total insanity. And I have crazy stories. The only reason I never got a DUI is because my married boyfriend was a sheriff. Every time I got pulled over, I would give my driver's license, like his business card.
Did you say your married boyfriend?
Yes, I did. I had a great picker. I used to pick guys who were emotionally unavailable, so there was no real threat of any kind of real intimacy, as it turns out. I didn't know that that's what I was doing, but that's what I was doing. I hated myself so much. It's like, what am I going to do? Any nice into my life, I was like, oh no, I can't tolerate this. You're too nice, which is just sad. Listen, and I have a whole thing about why nice guys finish last. It's because women have such a low self-esteem. They can't accept being accepted. if we're not going to accept anybody who any more than we accept ourselves, right? Water seeks its own level. And so if you want to know what someone really feels about themselves, look at their spouse. Their spouse treats them like shit. That's what they feel they deserve. That's a direct outward sign of how you feel about yourself, your self-esteem. And that's why, and I was going to mention this when we were talking about service, but that's why service is so important, is because when we show up to recovery, if at all, we're the lucky ones, Omar. But the people who don't, the ones who do, we do service because that builds our self-esteem, right? Our self-esteem just takes hit after hit after hit. We need a way to build that back up. And that's what service is. It's a way to build your self-esteem up. So, but I didn't know any of this because I hadn't gotten sober yet. And what ended up happening for me is I was in this outside sales job. I was single from like 20 to maybe 23 or 4. And I managed to take this hostage. Boyfriend. And he was what I thought my ideal was. He was beautiful on the outside in the very specific way that was my flavor of fancy, I guess. And I was losing him because of my drinking. I was in an outside sales job, and I thought that my job was to take people out and get them drunk and be friends. And, but it's funny because drinking can be a bonding experience, right? Your frontal cortex goes to sleep, all your inhibitions, and people they get vulnerable sometimes, and they share their truth, and it can be a bonding experience. I've heard that term trauma bonding. People share when they get drunk, but anyway, I was losing this guy because of my drinking, and 2 of my customers were in the program. I'll never forget them, Rich and Randy. Did I say Rich? I meant Rich. I almost forgot them. I'll never forget them, Mitch and Randy. And I almost just forgot them. But these 2 guys were in the program. And let me tell you, Omar, they were fine, upstanding men of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know why? Because they shared their experience. They sort of broke down some real basic concepts of recovery, like you can't do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That's insanity, right? And I was like, oh my God, you're right. And, not being able to predict my behavior once I started drinking, just some real basic principles. And Mitch took me to my very first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And then they said, you know what? The women work with the women and the men work with the men. And I'm so grateful for that because, the rooms are not always safe. Just a little cautionary tale, it's not well persons anonymous, right? It should be fucked up crazy people's anonymous. Overthinkers anonymous. I will distract at any cost anonymous. Right?
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Stop right now, rewind.
Okay.
And listen to that again, guys. Oh. That was gold. That was true.
Is that going to be your little clip in the beginning? Ooh, ideas for you. See, this is the podcaster coming out in me. I'm like, hey, Omar, here's an idea for you.
Yeah. This is a collaboration.
Yes. So, so these guys, that's when I started going. That's when I started going to Alcoholics Anonymous. My whole life had fallen apart. I was losing the boyfriend. I had no friends. My sales career was in the toilet. I was doing horrible at work. And I was so depressed. I just quit eating and I didn't even realize it. I should show you this picture. It's sad, but it's when I'm 30 days sober. I have platinum blonde hair and I'm about 90 pounds. I'm skin and bones. But you know what, Omar? I had a grin from ear to ear. It was a picture of me and my sister, and we were going to a meeting to pick up my 30-day chip.
No.
But it was so sweet, right? Like she was there in the beginning and she was there at the end. it was really special. And, but yeah, the end was just, it was as lonely and dark. I felt broken. And it seemed like the harder I tried, the worse it got. And I just couldn't figure it out. And I was like, why? And there was this, I didn't even tell you, but how I bottomed out is, my boyfriend and I broke up, and my sister and I went out, and I got really drunk. My married policeman boyfriend and I broke up, and he was, you know what he was? He was a DUI cop. How funny is that?
Oh.
Yeah, super funny. I met him because he pulled me over the one night I didn't drink when I went out. I'm not kidding. I never was sober when I went out, and he pulled me over the one night. If I had been loaded, he would have taken me to jail. But I was sober, and I had a cute girlfriend, and he was chatting us up, and that's how I met him. But he and I had broken up, and I was so depressed and just in that downward spiral. And I remember before I left my house, I had this large water glass of red wine. And then I get to the bar. I don't remember most of what happened, but I remember bits and pieces of making a fool of myself and embarrassing myself. And on the way home, my sister was driving. It was just the two of us because nobody else would hang at that point. We were going home, and she was driving. I had this little cute Ford Ranger, and we passed him. He had pulled somebody over and was doing a field sobriety test. I don't really remember this, but I lost my shit. I punched the windshield broke it in two places. My sister said I was trying to jump out of the car while she was trying to drive us home. Such a drama queen. And then she and I got in a fight, and I kicked her in the face and gave her a bloody nose. And she managed to pull the truck over, and we were almost home. She ran to a childhood neighbor's house and got help. And I was losing my shit in the middle of the street. I don't even remember what happened, but they called the police, and I kind of came to in a moment where this guy was like, do you want to go to jail? And I remember a girl standing, my childhood best friend, her older sister, who hated me, by the way, it's it's not worth it. And I don't remember what happened, but they let me go home again. And that was my bottom, Omar. That was my bottom. Actually, it was my first bottom because it took me 2 years to get to an AA meeting after that. But after that night with my sister, and I had to go sulk over to her. It was I woke up with incomprehensible demoralization. I went over to my sister's house, and I listened to her tell the story about what happened. Most of what I told you was secondhand information. And she started going to Al-Anon, and I was like, it's funny. I was offended. I was like, oh, you're going to Al-Anon for me? I was like, I was totally indignant about the whole thing. That's how disassociated from reality I was. So crazy. But yeah, it took me 2 years. That's when the questions began. Am I an alcoholic? What is an alcoholic? When did I cross the line? And the questions, it took me 2 years. And I heard that it's a reoccurring theme I've heard over the years. It seems to take about 2 years sometimes, for some people, for me, to really let that idea sink in, try to control it, have it not go so well. So it took me 2 years to finally have that moment with my boyfriend when we broke up, to be like, I need to get sober. I need to get sober. So, Randy took me, he kind of broke down the first 3 steps, and then Mitch took me to my very first meeting that was for me. And it was all that, and that's when the magic started. And so I'll kind of get into solution, because you know what, that was like half my life ago. And so from the time I got sober to today, the one thing I have consistently done is I'm a seeker. I am thirsty for knowledge. I want to know. I want to be able to untangle this whole mess that was Arlina, to figure out, why am I like this? Well, why was I doing all these things? I tried so hard to fix myself, and I couldn't. And it wasn't until I came into the rooms that I learned that I had a disease, and that I wasn't going to be able to heal myself. I was never going to be able to do it. You know, it took a higher power to remove the obsession, but it also took, and you know what, Omar, I wasn't that far off. I thought love was going to save me, but I thought it was going to come through, you know, in the form of romantic love from a man. I thought a man was going to come save me. And the truth is, love did save me. Love of the people of the program, they surrounded me. I heard things like do 90 meetings in 90 days, get a sponsor, which was terrifying to me because, you know, I spent so much time and energy like decorating the outside. I felt like I had nothing on the inside. What is another woman going to want with me? I felt like I had nothing to offer. I was terrified, but I was so desperate to be sober. I was willing to do anything. I was desperately willing to do anything to stay sober. And this woman, I chose my sponsor because this woman remembered my name the second time she met me. And it was as if the clouds had parted and the sun was shining, and it was like, oh, it was like the angels were singing. I was like, oh my God, you're the one. And it was, you know how I asked her to be my sponsor? I said, I kept hearing about this ominous 4-step. And I was like, I am not going out like that. I'm going to do this damn thing. I was like so defiant. I was like, I heard, 1 in 100 people get sober. I was like, that's going to be fucking me. That's mine. That's when being greedy and selfish and self-centered comes into play. And yeah, you know what's funny is I showed up to Alcoholics Anonymous completely self-centered, but incapable of self-examination. And it wasn't until I got a sponsor and I started doing the steps that I was able to do objective self-examination. And it was mind-blowing. I have never been the same since. Once you see the truth, you can't, right? And, you know, woman, I asked her if she would listen to my 4-step. And you know what she said? She said, I would be honored. And I leveled me. It still catches in my throat when I think about it, because I would tell my business to anybody who would stand still long enough, right? It's like, I was so be heard, and I could see it in her eyes that she got my kind of crazy, and she loved me anyway. She loved me anyway. And I was so grateful for her. And we attacked the steps the same way that I pursued drugs and alcohol. And then, by the way, my tagline in the rooms is, when I'm telling my story, is that if it was in a bottle, a bag, or blue jeans, I was doing it. Yes, that means what you think it means.
I didn't have any questions.
I know, we were clear, right? I already talked about
that was
I already talked about her. That's all out on the table. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so she and I attacked the steps, and I had no problem with step 1. I really had no problem with step 2. I grew up in the church, so I kind of felt like, you know, I did the alcoholic prayer, right? God help me. I was clear that my way wasn't working. I had heard that a problem can't be solved with the mind that created it. And I was like, oh shit. So I picked a woman who had what I wanted and who was willing to help me with my decision-making process, right? It's like, there were times when I would end up in the same spot, and I'd be like, how did I get here again? You know, it was that's such a hopeless place. And that's happened in recovery too. But now I have a way out, right? It's I air my thinking out with somebody else, like a trusted advisor, a sponsor, a coach, where I can be like, here's what my decision-making process is. But it's typically, we ask the same questions, we come to the same conclusions, and we go around in that same circle. So we need to have better questions, right? My thinking is, it's either A or B. Well, guess what? God's way is typically C or D or E, or it's a number, or it's a color. You know, it's like something way out of what I thought was going to happen typically ends up being the solution when I'm willing to surrender and be open, willing, and honest for the solution to come in. So I've always had a sponsor. I've changed sponsors many times. I evolve, they evolve. It's okay to switch. And I learned different things from different people. Everybody has something different to offer. So I would just encourage people to always be seeking and to always have a mentor you can trust. It's like we need a mentor, we need a tribe, and we need someone to give it away to. That's your community, right? Super important to have. We don't do any of this alone.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. So, from the time I got sober to now, I met my husband. I was 5 months sober. We've been together ever since. I just got super lucky. What?
5 months sober?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I know it's pretty uncommon. I know. I got so lucky. I got so lucky.
Yes, you did. Now you guys are still married.
I know. Oh, it's been like 21 years, or we got married in 97. I'm not good with math. I think we're like 21 years. We've been together nearly my entire sobriety, right? He's just a phenomenal human being. He's so funny. He's like the nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. And I was able to bring my self-esteem up enough to receive love, right? That was a big part of recovery, was accepting that I was worthy of love. And I think maybe if I had met him even just a little bit sooner, I don't know, but God's timing is perfect, right? And we've raised 2 boys, and marriage is hard when you have little kids, right? Marriage is hard. What am I saying? Little kids are hard on a marriage, right? That can be challenging. We've been through a lot, the whole finances. There was a time when my husband got laid off and I was pregnant with my second child, and we came so close to losing our house. Yeah, it was, but we didn't. And I had little miracles. You want to hear a little miracle that happened?
Bring it.
It was like this little, so I have these little moments. And this is how like my higher power to me, or herself, whatever. So we were on the verge of losing our house. My dad was kind of floating us some money to make the mortgage, and my husband was depressed. He came in. It was like I had a daycare in my house, and I was pregnant, and I was hitting my limits faster and faster every day. I wasn't going to be able to I couldn't physically do any more than what I was doing. He came into the room one night. I was expecting kids the next day, and he tells me, "I don't want to kill myself, but I know, right?" And I was like, this is not good. I don't care. I mean, it was dark. It was a dark period. And I was like, God, where are you? Where are you? What is the lesson? What is the lesson here, is what I kept asking myself. And what I finally, sometimes my lessons come at the 11th hour, right? That's why they say, don't quit 5 minutes before the miracle. Mm-hmm. I came to that place where, and I was sharing at meetings what was going on. I was honest. I was in fear. I was pregnant. My husband was depressed. It was like, we were really struggling. And I was, okay, God, I just hit that place of surrender. Like, if this is your will, then there must be a lesson in it. But please help me get the lesson. Like, I was just in complete surrender mode. And sometimes my surrender prayer is, God, you need to fucking fix me, because I can't do it. Right? It's like, do your job. It's like, align my heart's desire with your will. Whatever your will is, you need to fix me, because I want what I want. And so I need you to fix, I need some help here. And it was when I hit that moment of surrender, it was right around Christmas. I had my baby in January, so I was really pregnant. And we were going to my sister-in-law's house, and she had this big, beautiful house. I didn't have anything to bring. We were so broke, and I was so ashamed. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do the best I can. We're going to show up. And I walked outside. It was raining that morning. I walked outside, and in the windshield of my car was a little plastic bag wrapped up, and something was tucked under the wiper blade. And I pulled it out, and it was a gift card for $100 to Safeway. And
What?
right? Yes. Somebody had
God.
dropped off $100
Dude.
anonymously because they knew I was suffering, right?
Oh, dude, you're
Like,
killing me.
these people loved me. And I knew that I was going to be okay. That was like that was the moment that I was loved, even if I lost my house, that I was going to be loved no matter what. Right. So, and that was such and you know what, Omar, we didn't lose the house. It was almost right after that my husband got a job. It was right after that, I had my baby, and I had to ask for help in the daycare, and things got so much better. It was a miracle, right? It was like, that's how God works in my life. I asked for help, I surrendered, and magic happens when I surrender. So, and I have many stories like that over the last 24 years of recovery of,
Dude.
Just when you think it's all going to go to hell, God steps in. God. So I don't feel like God had a plan, but God certainly was able to turn that situation and turn it into something magical. And that's just how it's been. There have been ups, there have been downs, but that's life. Just because you don't get sober doesn't mean life gets perfect, right? That's usually when the work begins, but I don't regret a day of it. I never trade my sobriety for a drink or a drug, not for 1 second. I had that spiritual awakening early on in my recovery, and I have never looked back. My life is magical. It's like some people are like, oh, do you still go to meetings? Yeah, I go to meetings. Why wouldn't I? That's where there's a room full of people who love me. There's a room full of people who I love. It's a ready-made set of service, right? I can be of service to them. They can be of service. It's like we get through this thing together. We trudge the road to happy destiny together.
Wow. Holy cow. That was, you got me there.
Is that too much?
No.
Yeah, isn't that an amazing story? God is just magical.
Magic in there?
Yeah.
Magic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, it's not about God having a plan or not having a plan. It's not about understanding how the higher power works in our lives. It's about accepting it.
Exactly.
It's about embracing it. And more importantly, it's about reaching out to it, right? Help me, God, help me.
Yeah.
There's never been a time where I have not been just completely desperate for help, right? And
Sure.
I didn't get on my knees with that hopeless feeling.
Yeah.
And just going, and I'm not talking about when I got clean and sober. I'm talking about in recovery and just
in
going,
life.
God, I can't do this. I cannot,
Right.
I don't know how to do this. I have no idea. I got to turn this over. I got to turn this over because I can't. And then it's in that 11th hour, right? It's in that final hour of complete surrender and never wavering faith, because we keep praying. That means
what choice did I have? What choice do we have, really?
You have a choice. You got a choice. You can turn away from him.
Well, you can use, but we all know where that goes.
Exactly. There is a choice. You chose to have faith.
You're right. Yeah.
Or else I'm not going to empty house. Empty house. No, I mean, I choose to believe that my higher power is going to get me through it. And so I'm going to pray every single day. Yeah. Because I know he's there or she's there or whatever. It's insignificant. Nobody knows what they look like or what it is or how it works. It makes it's pointless to go there, right?
Yeah.
What's important is that so many of us have a practice. Every day, and recognizing that there is a force greater than us, right? Yeah. Working around us. And life does not happen to us. It happens for us. Everything is about what we learn. And as I get through these unbelievable experiences that I don't think I can take anything. I don't think I can take one more amount of pain.
Right.
And we do, and we get through it. And all that is an opportunity for us to now help someone else get through it.
Absolutely.
And that's where the community comes in. That's where your support
the magic right there.
That's the magic right there. I am in pain. Get to a meeting. Share about it.
Yeah.
You share about it. Then somebody else shares their experience, strength, and hope. Then you talk to somebody after the meeting. And then all of a sudden, what was once hopeless is now hopeful.
Exactly. Yeah. And, I know when people are new, it's tough to it's tough to connect. And I was going to share with your listeners that I'm offering a 7-day challenge. And you can get it on my website at ODAATchat.com. And I'm actually launching it's called a Sober Life School. And I will have different offerings to help people with listen, I've learned a lot over the last 24 years. And, maybe it's selfish, but I want to give it away. I want to teach what has saved me, right? And I'm offering this 7-day challenge. So it's called the Connection Cure. And the premise is, and this is what I do with my girls, and this is what helps us all so much. I still do this practice myself. It's willingness calls. I call them willing because we need to be willing to participate in our own recovery, right? Isolation is the kryptonite to an alcoholic, right? And so this willingness call process gets you out of isolation. And it works like this. So what you do is for 7 days, the 7-day challenge is that you reach out to one person a day. And the phone call is just, hey, I'm just doing some willingness calls. You can explain what a willingness call is to the people. You can prep people ahead of time and be like, hey, I'm doing my willingness call. I just want to share a little bit about what's going on with me, right? This isn't your opportunity to dump on somebody for an hour, right? Just put a rein on it. Roll it back a little bit. But what you're doing is you're saying, here's a little bit about what's going on with me. And because you don't want to be an asshole, you say, and what's going on with you, right? It's a two-way street. What's going on in your world? And then that's it. And that's all you have to do. And you can hang up. But you do that once a day. So pretty soon what happens is your current, all of a sudden that connection happens, right? You get connected, you call someone, they're like, oh, they start talking. They're like, I didn't realize I needed to talk. Or you start sharing and something completely different comes out, something that was on your heart and you didn't even realize it, right? We're so disconnected from our own feelings. Have you ever seen one of those old time pictures of the switchboard operators?
Yes.
Where they're sitting at the switchboard and they have all these plugs, right? It's like we have spent so much time and energy disconnecting from our feelings with the drugs and alcohol, right? That we get sober and we're like, oh my God, I have a fucking feeling. I don't know what to do. What is this thing, right? It's like where does the plug go? But it's so funny, like we start talking to each other and things come up and that's where the healing, we share our secrets and that's where the healing happens. But the purpose of the willingness calls are after a short amount of time, you start feeling connected, you're part of a herd. And then when the shit hits the fan, as it inevitably will, if your sponsor isn't available, you're already current with like 3 or 4 people so that when you call them, you're already current. You don't have to spend a lot of time talking about the backstory. You can get right into solution, right? And so that's the 7-day challenge. And so what you get is an email every day from me asking, how did it go? And I want you to respond. I want to know what happened. I really want to know. I want you to email me back and tell me what happened. Because I think what you'll find, it's like a little bit of an accountability exercise, right? You get an email, don't forget to make your willingness calls today. Call 3 people. Who are you going to call? And then how did it go? That's what I want. That's how it is. And so in 7 days, magic can happen. I have done this practice myself over the last 24 years because my natural instinct is when I'm overwhelmed and I can't manage my emotions, I want to isolate. I want to retreat. I want to binge watch Netflix. I want to eat ice cream. I want to sit in my bed and don't nobody call me, you know? But when I'm done, wallowing in self-pity is what it is. I start going to a meeting. I'll start doing my 7-day process, right? Okay, it's like, okay, I have to start making calls. And I start making calls, and I shit you not, Omar, by the end of the week, I'm already like 100% better. I have coffee dates for the following week. I have lunch dates for the following week. It's like, it just takes a little bit of effort on my part, and God does the rest. And by the way, God works through people, right? It's like I have these amazing people in my life that if I would just give them the chance, they would love to spend time with me, right? It's like we have amazing people around us, but so often we're just like, oh, I'm too busy. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to stay home. I'm tired. I'll do it later. None of that works, right? So pain is the touchstone of all growth. And when I get enough pain, I start taking some action. And that's typically where I start, is with my willingness calls. I assign it to my girls. I don't even front anymore. It's like if I start assigning homework, I just start doing it. It's good. You know, I feel like we teach what we need to learn, right, Omar?
Wrong. I give assignments. I don't do them.
Yes, you do. You had me go. I was like, no, you didn't.
I can't give what I don't have. You know, so
an assignment is a writing assignment. You can pick up the phone.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. You know,
okay.
Yeah.
Of course you are.
You know, but you know, let's not mistake self-pity with self-care. I love to binge watch Netflix and eat ice cream on the couch.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean,
disconnect, right? Like sometimes I need to be able to disconnect.
Yeah. Well, you're a giver. But you're always
giving, a lot.
So you need to recharge. So it's all about balance. And I feel like if I was going to say that I had a sobriety, I would say it is to find the balance and recommit. There's no shame anymore. I fall out of balance all the time. And one day I realized, I just need to recommit. I was like, oh, look at that. I didn't need to beat myself up about it. Isn't that interesting? I just recognized one day, and listen, this is many years, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. But I realized, I don't have to beat myself up. I just find the balance and recommit. No judgment. Just do it. It's fine. It's not a big deal. And that's what's worked for me.
You know, I think one of the most important things about the willingness call is that no matter what's going on, especially when you're either out of it or down or whatever the case may be, that what's going on with you, right? Get out of self, right? So the attempt at first, because a lot of times the inclination is to just call someone and just vomit all over their day, right? And so there's a whole lot that happens in that moment, okay? However, if I start it with a different intention, whereas I know that there's something inside of me that is making me irritable, restless, discontent, angry, frustrated, or whatever. I call somebody, but I'm already in the practice of the willingness call, right? So it's kind of like the journaling. A lot of it's already a lot of the negative emotions, you know, the intensity is starting to come down anyway. Now I call and I say, how are you doing? How's it going? Right? Maybe I want to just go in there and say, well, as soon as they tell me how they're doing, then I'm going to go right into mine. But sometimes if I ask somebody, hey, how you doing? How's it going? Man, you know, I'm having a tough day. You know, this and this and this happened to me. And I'm glad you called, right? I really needed to talk to somebody. I didn't realize it. And all of a sudden you went from, right, me to, wow, glad I called. Well, you know, if there's anything I can do, maybe we can get together for coffee. And maybe you forget what the hell was going on with you in the first place because the energy just shifted. The energy just shifted, and you use that energy instead of for self-preservation, right, to be of service. And I have said that before. It's like, listen, don't just call somebody and just, you know, verbally, you know, the verbal diarrhea, which is the inclination, right? Reach out to somebody and ask, hey, man, what can I do for you? You know, I mean, how are you doing? How's it going? Right?
Yeah.
Oh, man, thanks for calling. Thanks for asking. And trust me, I do not even remotely do that, you know, on a regular basis. There, you know, like I hope it doesn't sound like this is what I do on a regular basis. I'll call me on my own shit, right? However, this is about therapeutic value. So to get the most, give the most.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. And like, you know, magical things happen out of those phone calls. It's like pretty soon, I don't know what it is about connecting on the phone, not texting, being on the phone. You know, it's like I'll start doing some loneliness calls. Yeah. You know, and whatever, but there's something about calls. And then, I have found reach out to will reach out to me when they're having a hard time. Then suddenly there's this reciprocal back and forth, ebb and flow. You know, I always feel like you need to have 3 kinds of people in your tribe. You need a listener, like a sponsor. You need a road dog, someone who's going to go with you to meeting and meet you for lunch and meet you at exercise class or whatever. And then you need the person that you can give back to, right? Those often needy people. And there would be times when like my phone rings and I'm like, oh, I just want to watch. But I pick up the phone because I remember what it was like when I was new and that woman remembered my name, right? It's like, I remember what that was like even after all these years. And so you kind of need those 3 kinds of people in your recovery. It's the head, who's with you, and who's coming up behind, right? We're in a circle. It's not a ladder, it's a circle.
I love it. I love it. So listen, tell us about when the inspiration came for ODAAT Chat.
Oh, I think I may have told you the story. I'm not sure if I did or not, but so I had already started a podcast that was around high-tech sales, right? Like I told you, I'm like just learner, and I was getting into podcasts. I was commuting a lot and I didn't have a lot of time to read. I was getting into podcasts, but I couldn't find what I was looking for. So I decided to create a podcast. I was listening to Tim Ferriss. I don't know if you know who that is.
Of course.
But, I was obsessed with Tim Ferriss.
One of the originals. And Jordan Harbinger.
I don't know who that is, but okay.
Okay, sorry. But they're one of the pioneers. Jordan Harbinger with The Art of Charm, Tim Ferriss, Tim Ferriss Show. Coming back to you. Okay.
Ferriss, and I decided to start my own podcast. And so I I called it Sales Polish because another one of my obsessions is my nails. I paint nails. I am so obsessive. I started doing my own acrylic nails. I'm slightly ambidextrous because I'm right-handed, but I do not fine art painting, but anyway, it's a whole thing. I named my podcast Sales Polish, like you polish your sales skills. And I had been doing that for a while. But being in recovery, it was kind of this growing sense of urgency on my heart. It was like a pressing need. It was like, I need to do a recovery podcast. And I heard yours and Anna David's and some other people's podcasts. And I'm like, I felt like that was my purpose, but I was scared. What are people going to think? You know, it's just the anonymity issues. I was struggling. And then one of the girls from the ODAAT, my 6 a.m. ODAAT meeting, died in a car accident. She was at the 6 a.m. meeting and died 3 hours later. It was gnarly. And I know, and listen, that's it. There's no more death stories I'm going to tell you. But it was pivotal in my life because I realized there is no later. This was a dream that was on my heart. It felt like it was coming from a pure place. I want to help. I want to say what I've learned, and I enjoy it. It makes me feel alive. I was not put on this earth to sling software, okay? I don't like it anymore. I'm in the midst. I am going to take my sober life school and I'm going to turn it into something beautiful, and that's what I intend to do. And that's how I started it. I was like, okay, that's enough. I'm going to do it. It was like, okay, God, I hear you. I'm going to do this thing. And so I started it. And my friend Katie, who passed away, she was the second guest on my show. And I got to tell you, Omar, it was magical. She had lost her kids and her addiction. And sister told her husband that she was back on drugs again, her sister, Sierra. And Katie had forgiven Sierra and didn't know it until she heard the podcast after she passed away. And it was like, okay, God, I'm never going to doubt you ever again. If this is your will for me, if this is the path you want me on, if people criticize me because they think I'm not doing something right, I don't know what criticism I was afraid of, but I don't care, because beautiful, magical things have been happening since I started it. And I'm approaching 60 episodes. I'm starting the Sober Life School, and just all good things are happening. Just amazing things have happened.
That is to think of the opportunity that you gave your friend to leave that legacy behind.
Yeah.
Right? For her to be able to share her story and to have that, right?
Yeah.
In many cases, until someone shares their story and then somebody listens to the whole journey, it doesn't make sense. It's just not clear. It's kind of like you get pieces along the way. Family members, friends, whatever the case may be. You're not there for the whole journey. You're not there in the process that we go through in our minds, right? While the journey is going. Yeah, there's all this chaos and fear and hopelessness and demoralization. And so you tell your story, and then somebody listens and like, I had no idea. Right. And you get this opportunity that if it wasn't for your podcast, her story and what she had to say, who knows what would have happened with that. And I know that
her story would have been lost.
Yeah, her story would have been lost. And I've had, one of my favorite episodes, one of the favorite episodes for my listeners that got a ton of downloads was from Brian Nino, BD Nino. And BD Nino turned his life around. He got married. He wrote a book, The Seven Habits of Highly Successful Sober People, something like that, right?
Oh, very cool.
Okay. And, I don't know how much clean time he had. He was married. He was happy. He was a marathon runner. He was a vegan, right? And he relapsed when his wife left him and eventually was found dead in his apartment.
Oh.
In his 30s. Either late 30s, early 40s. Something like that.
So sad.
Yes. And I remember when his ex-wife reached out to me afterwards, and it's like, you know what? He got an opportunity to share an amazing story, an amazing part of his journey. And it was a cautionary tale for thousands of people that are in the SHIAR recovery community, that somebody they knew, somebody who had recovered, somebody who had gotten their life back and forgot a couple of very important things when it comes to recovery. We don't do this alone. And it doesn't matter if you get divorced, and it doesn't matter if you lose your job, and it doesn't matter, right, what kind of things happen. You don't disconnect. You do not. You need, and especially then is when you need your support group the most.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so this is what we're able to do. That's what ODAAT Chat is able to do. That's what SHIAR is able to do. We're able to help people carry a legacy that otherwise may not ever have been able, or had the floor, right, or the opportunity, or the venue to share their story.
Platform. Yeah.
We have, you and I both have people on our shows that have never told their story on the grand scale before.
Yeah.
And we give them that opportunity. The regular person next door that normally would not have this opportunity now has an opportunity to share their story and impact thousands of people's lives.
Thousands of people's lives. Yeah, it's a big deal. I just feel so passionate about this work. I just feel, and we're stronger together. I love that as a podcast community, like podcasters, like we band together and we support each other because none of us are in competition. We all have the same end goal. It's like you and I both know what it's like to stand at the abyss. And for whatever reason, love pulled us back. And that's a gift. We were lucky. And I will never forget what that feels like. You will never forget what that feels like. And, there's just like this deep need to try to save somebody from their pain. Maybe not necessarily their life, but their pain. There's no need for it. Joy shared is increased and pain shared is diminished. It's just the way it works. Yeah, so we definitely need each other.
Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional.
Suffering is optional, yeah.
Suffering is optional. So tell us, Arlina, what is the best way for our listeners to reach out to you, to learn about the willingness?
The willingness challenge, calling it the, what did I decide to call it? The
Connection Cure?
The Connection Cure. It's a 7-day challenge to help eliminate isolation. So probably by the time this podcast comes out, I'll have a link on ODAAT Chat, and hopefully soberlifeschool.com will be launched. That's coming soon. And I also have a Facebook page for the ODAAT Chat. I have a fan page, and I took your suggestion, and I have a private group too now.
Wonderful.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I took your suggestion. Thank you. And you're like my podcast mentor, so I appreciate your help and advice.
It's an honor.
But yeah, so there you have it. I'm all over social media, Facebook, Instagram, ODAAT Chat, and Sober Life School.
Okay. I will have that listed on Arlina's show notes on the SHIAR podcast. So just go to the SHIAR podcast, go to Arlina's show notes, and I'll have everything listed. Her website, what is it, the Sober School?
Sober Life School.
Sober Life School. Sober Life School will be listed, and social media. So just go there. It'll all be listed.
It'll all be listed. Yeah, the Sober Life School, I'm really excited about that because that'll cover topics on relationship, money, of course, mostly sobriety. We're developing a program called Sobriety Reset. It's like back to basics. You don't have to relapse to reset your sobriety.
Right?
Yeah. If you feel stagnant about your recovery, it's a simple process to sort of get back to basics and get reconnected and dust off your tools so that the end goal is to feel inspired by life, to feel engaged and to feel joy and happiness. Those are all things that are possible. It's not hard. Just requires, I heard you can move mountains, but you better bring a shovel.
I just recently heard that one.
Isn't that good?
That was, I just recently, yeah.
So many clever things that we hear. Yeah.
I've never heard that one before, and then I'm hearing that twice. Huh. Okay.
You know what, Amy Dresner, I had Amy Dresner on. I know she was on yours too. I heard her say, we are only needy as our unmet needs. And I've really been, isn't that good? I had never heard that before in 20 years. Never heard that. And it just has been, I've really just been working with that. And in different situations, when it comes up, it's like, oh, there it is. Oh, there it is. You're needy because you have an unmet need. That's all that is. There's ways to fix that. Get into solution. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. All right, Arlina, we're going to start closing up. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to ask you 5 questions about early recovery, and I want you to respond for the newcomer. Let's rock and roll. So number 1. What was keeping you from getting clean or staying clean when you first got introduced to recovery?
Well, it took me about 60 days to get 30, I was just really struggling with some cravings. Like, actually, what's funny is I had my last drink on my 25th birthday and then showed up to Alcoholics Anonymous 5 months later. I was on the marijuana maintenance program.
Yeah.
And I had that moment of clarity where I realized I had to stop. I was powerless over that as well. I just had that moment of clarity. I was done.
Beautiful, beautiful. So number 2, at what point did you have a spiritual awakening, that aha moment in recovery, when you accepted that you were powerless over drugs and alcohol, but for the first time had developed the hope that you could recover?
Oh, that's a good one. So when I first got sober, I had to move out of my boyfriend's house, and I moved back home with Mom. And she had and my sister was there too. And my mom had a roommate. So I had to sleep on my mom's couch for the first month. And I just felt so low. And like I said, it took me 60 days to get 30 because I had relapsed. I went and hung out with a friend and smoked some weed. And I was really irritable that night. And we had this black lab named Bruce. He was amazing. Bruce and I went out for a walk, and it was just like me, the dog. And I realized, you know what? I am powerless over this too. My life is unmanageable because I was rude to my mother and my sister, and it just felt like shit about it. And I was like, and that was my moment of clarity. I was like, I'm completely powerless over this. And I just went right back to meetings, and it all turned around from there.
Beautiful. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Very early on. A nice aha. It's, you know what? I think it takes us a while to recognize those aha moments. It's like later on that we realize, wow, that was that moment of clarity where it all just kind of clicked. It all came together. Right. And I was like, there is a solution. Like, I can do this.
Yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely. And there's been many along the way, right? It's hard to pick out just one, but that was one of the first that I remember.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right. So then, do you have a favorite book that you would recommend to our newcomers?
Oh my God. You're like asking me. Here's the notes. You're like, it's like you're asking me to choose a favorite child. But I knew this question was coming. And so there's 2. I couldn't pick just one. So right just before I got sober, this book sort of laid the foundation, I think, for my mind. It's interesting how our minds are what govern our entire lives. And, it's a physical thing, right? We need to take care of our brain, but I didn't. I was high. But just as I was, one of my biggest revelations was when I got sober was I thought I was stupid. Turns out I was just stoned. I wasn't really stupid. I was high.
That's brilliant.
That shit makes you stupid. Stupid.
Who knew?
Okay. I know, right? Okay, but favorite books. The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. That book was so... and was just such a clear thought process. That's when I learned that every relationship has a 50-50 shared responsibility. And then later in the literature, we talk about it's a spiritual axiom that when we're upset, we're also at fault, right? But that was the first time I was introduced to the idea of I always have a responsibility in every situation. So that was mind-blowing. Yeah. And then many years later... What's my part, right? That's always the hardest part for me. That goes back to the being self-centered, but not being able to do self-examination, right? Of course, the big book, I have to throw that in there. But the most significant book besides the big book came later when Eckhart Tolle wrote A New Earth. That was, I don't even remember what it was about the book, but it was just a whole nother layer in such a deep way that that book probably had the most significant impact on me since the big book.
I love it. That book has come up a couple times. Oh no!
Oh, really?
It came from my wife.
Oh,
yes.
She's brilliant.
Actually, she
Kinda
is.
right? Yeah, I could tell.
Yeah. No bullshit. I'm married up, they tell me.
She is beautiful. Yeah, you both make a handsome couple.
Oh, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. So you and your husband. You guys.
Oh, dude, he just dropped like 40 pounds too. I'll tell you about that on
40
another.
pounds.
Yeah.
Wow.
Actually,
Wow.
so excited about this process that he's going to do a coaching certification to take other people through the same process that he went through. It's pretty amazing. I'll tell you about it later, but
Wow.
or you can reach out to me on social media and I'll tell you.
There you go. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. All right. So number 4.
Okay.
What is the best suggestion you have ever received?
Well, I don't know how this is going to sound, but this is the truth. Before my husband and I started dating, I was asking him about something and he told me to follow my heart. And I did. And that was probably the best decision I ever made. And I've expanded that a little bit to like go to meetings. Sometimes I just want to sound good, right? I want to sound good and say some profound shit from podium level, right? And heal the masses. But when I'm coming from that ego place, my message doesn't move anybody. But when I speak from my heart, when your message moves you, you will move the masses, right? So I follow my heart now.
I love that. And there's this internal dialogue. It's called intuition that we all have, right? So following my heart in many cases is just following that voice inside, right?
Yeah.
That's telling us exactly what we need to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need somebody to tell you, listen to that voice.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to steer you wrong.
Follow
it's
your
not
heart.
going to steer you wrong. Unless it says smoke crack. Don't listen to that one.
Don't listen to that voice. Right? Don't do crack. Crack is whack.
I can hear somebody listening to me right now going, oh yeah, my voice is telling me to smoke some crack.
Right.
Don't listen to that one.
Not that voice.
There's a few voices inside of you. Right? A few voices inside of you. One of it could be Wimpy Windy. The other one could be Badass Betsy or Slutty Karen.
Slutty Karen's kind of fun, I have to admit.
All right. So number 5.
Are you blushing? You're blushing, Omar.
A little bit. She got me.
Got you. Okay, what's question number 5?
If you could give our newcomers only one suggestion, what would it be?
Surrender to the process.
Yeah.
Like
that. Surrender to the process. And it's not even just surrender to win. Surrender to the process. Stop trying to figure it out. Just do it.
Yeah, this isn't a figure it out anonymous.
Yeah.
There is a process. That's not one of our slogans. Figure it out. Right?
Dude, I am going to use that. Listen, this is not figure it out anonymous, right?
Right.
Leave that shit at home.
Figure that out your damn self. No, don't listen to that voice. Wrong.
Oh my God. All right. Wow. Hour 43 minutes. Crushed it.
What? Oh my God. I'm so sorry I talked so long. That was so fun though. You were such a great interviewer.
Stop it. So are you.
Ugh. Stop it. I'll give you 10 minutes to stop that.
Yeah. Yes, you're right. I am a great host.
Yes, you are.
All right.
That was super fun. We'll have to do, and you need to come be a teacher on my sober school.
Okay.
Awesome.
All right.
Well,
Be an honor.
listen,
all right, Arlina.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, so it's just.
Did I just steal your line? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be quiet. Go ahead.
No. That was it. I'm going to let that stand. All right, folks. We have now reached the end of our show. Thanks for joining us. And as we say here in Costa Rica, pura vida. Give us
Have
pura
a great
vida.
night. Buena vida.
Pura vida.
What are you saying?
Pura vida.
Pura? Oh, pura vida. I'm supposed
There
to be
you
Mexican.
go.
I don't know what you're saying.
That was about to, I didn't even took the words out of my mouth again.
Damn it.
And that is a wrap.
Yay.
Oh, wow. That was great. That was great. That was